I'm Eileen Magas, and I'll be the moderator for today. I recently joined Accelerating Circularity as COO, and after having led a brand and been in the industry for many years, it's exciting to see what's happening in circularity in textiles. I think this is one of the most innovative spaces in the industry today. And it's an opportunity for us to transform the industry, how we make, use, reuse, and recycle our textiles. So I'm glad you joined us today. I invite you to use the chat. We'll hold the questions till the end, but I always feel like it's great to know what is exciting to people and what is of interest to learn more about. And I hope this session will generate some inspiration for how you and your businesses can take action, build connections, and be part of the transformation to textile circularity. Let's go to the agenda. So we have about an hour today, and we're prepared to kind of provide you with a real dose of today's status for what the work that we're doing to drive circularity and how it's taking shape. We're going to cover who we are, the tools that we're building, and the programs that we're working on. And so excited to get started and share more about how we're building circular systems across markets, materials, and our methods for that work. So who are we? Accelerating Circularity is an action-oriented nonprofit focused on textile-to-textile recycling at commercial scale. And we do that through a collaborative stakeholder approach. We have a mission to build circular systems that turn used textiles into new raw materials. And we have a vision for a world in which textiles are no longer wasted. We're driven by this opportunity to connect, take action, and transform. We're bringing the supply chain together with our brands through targeted programs and tools that will build meaningful partnerships that can drive the change that we want to see toward these circular textile systems. The action that we're taking is delivering on the programs that we put together that are driving tangible results. We have proven that we can develop recycled materials from textiles that are no longer in use. And the transformation that we're building toward is a system for the industry that will bring textile circularity to become the standard. It's the way that the business can operate. We're going to bring together our collectors, sorters, and recyclers along with the brands and transform the industry. And this is really the proof in the work that we've done. So from 2021 to 2024, the programs that we have been working on have delivered these 4 different products. 3 of them were with Target, and 1 of them was with Wrangler. We worked in 2 different regions. We've got 21 tons of post-consumer polyester, 29 tons of post-consumer cotton, and we had 74 participants in those programs, and those participants are through the supply chain as well as the brands that we're working with. And this really proves that we're able to do this work and can use the work that we have done to build the tools and continue to develop these commercial scale programs to transform the industry. And so speaking of the tools, we are excited to introduce the Next Use Network. This is a tool that we are developing based on learnings from the programs that we've been running. And it is a resource to help stakeholders identify and act on the next best use for the textiles that they're sitting on that are no longer in use. And then we're looking to capture the data on what those materials are, their composition, their location, and the tool will provide a recommendation for where those textiles can move to next. The industry will benefit from this tool because it transforms our existing reality zone directories with our collectors, sorters, preprocessors, and recyclers into a digital format that you can pose the information that you have of what that material is, and it generates options for where those materials will go, creating this push-pull mechanism for those spent textiles. So we're excited to see this Next Use Network tool come together. It will be a web application that will be available later this year. And next up are project spotlights, and excited to introduce you to Sarah Coulter, who runs our Americas program, and Patricia Monino, who runs our EU programs. So Sarah, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Thanks, Eileen. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Coulter, America's Program Director at Accelerating Circularity. I've been with the organization since the beginning days and have worn many hats at Accelerating Circularity, and really am excited to be leading several programs at Accelerating Circularity, including a number of them here in the Americas now. So building off of, excuse me, building off of the post-consumer programs that Eileen highlighted earlier, some of the work that we're doing now in the Americas is an expansion and really a deepening of those post-consumer programs. So some of the products that Eileen highlighted are really, ready, we believe, for commercialization. So if we posit that in those first round of system trials, as they were, if we say, we demonstrated that those fibers, yarns, and fabrics are feasible and technically possible, then what will it take to make them mainstream, to really commercialize them? That's the work that we're doing now in our Building Markets program in the Americas. So we're working with partners to bring those materials and systems to market and to make them ready for production now. What that looks like is translating some of the work that we've done in building capacity, collaboration, and understanding throughout the supply network, throughout the supply system, and expanding it so that it's easy for brands and retailers to tap into their supply matrices, to say, yes, I do want to make this material, and I can issue a PO to this supplier, so that they can establish running programs for fabric that has 20% post-consumer cotton, 40% overall recycled content. And we're doing that by taking the materials that we developed in those post-consumer programs that Eileen highlighted, and taking them to yarn spinners and mills and recyclers that had not yet participated, showing them that they are feasible, and inviting them in and saying, let's build this together. So we're scaling it up, and we're really excited to bring on a number of new recyclers into the work, and several additional yarn spinners and mills, so that we can collectively scale everything up and make things really, really, truly commercial and mainstream. Another program that I'm working on, and this program really grew quite organically out of our trials and post-consumer programs, is called Circular Systems for Trims and Ignored Materials. And a core part of our work is in building these systems, we expose the gaps, and we learn what needs additional investigation, what needs additional investment. And of course, I'm sure that I'm not revealing anything new to this audience when I say that we know that trims and certain materials are a real challenge and barrier to scaling circular textile to textile systems. And so we convened a group of trims manufacturers, equipment suppliers, and others in this space to really tackle this issue in terms of understanding where the real challenges are and understand what potential solutions might be, both at a practical level, a technological, operational, process level, also on a policy and implementation and business level. Right now, this group is getting ready to publish a set of case studies around the solutions that are ready to scale now, that are being implemented on the ground now, in terms of automated sortation and pre-processing for recycling systems that are scaling today, to give insights and learnings into where systems may be advancing and ready for investment. And the idea there is to allow other actors in the system to gain insights and really understand where other players are really innovating, and where additional investment might be needed, and where collaboration opportunities may be.
Hi, I think I will start. Hello, everyone. I'm Patricia Moñino. I'm the EU Program Director since April 2025. I'm very happy to see that many people joining the webinar in July. So this is very good. And I will tell you a little bit about my background, as I'm pretty new in the association. My academic background is in environmental engineering, holding a PhD in that field, but I've been focused on the mitigation of the environmental impact generated in the textile industry for over 10 years. I focused on big research projects, and I further specialized in sustainability in a recycling company. So for this role that I'm leading now, this experience fits very good to the work we are doing in accelerating circularity. I believe that we are at the stage where the time for recycling has arrived. The technology is ready, and we have proved it with our members. Regulations are coming, or some of them are already in place, and the creation of the circular system is the next step. And that's what we aim to facilitate with the post-consumer programs that we run both in America and in the European region. And we try to help unify the recycling value chain together with the textile value chain in order to generate this connection and establish a circular system. And for that, these post-consumer programs aim to accelerate the shift to circular production. What we do is to support the brands and retailers in their transition to recycled materials, accompanying them in their first adoptions, as well as in adapting from post-industrial to post-consumer feedstocks. At the same time, we work to recognize and elevate European recyclers, collectors, sorters, and manufacturers. And we help them gain visibility across the value chain, establishing these connections that are needed to transform the circular ecosystem. And finally, I think these post-consumer programs play a crucial role in supporting the regulatory compliance. We assist the brands and retailers in aligning with the extended producer responsibility, the EPR regulations, and try to make them benefit from the accumulation incentives to the adoption of consumer materials. And with that, I will turn it back to Eileen.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah and Petri. It's a great summary of the work that you're doing every day for accelerating circularity. So we're going to switch gears and talk about how to bridge knowledge and policy gaps. And happy to share that Carla and Sarah will cover that for us. Carla, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Eileen. So we have a program where we are working right now on mapping secondhand material flows. Really, we call it the roadmap to action. So the idea is that we are working with, we're collaborating. Eileen told you early on that we believe in working in a collaborative stakeholder-led approach. This is a really great example of that. We are collaborating on the project with BSR and WWF because each one of our organizations has specific skills that can bring to this program. And the idea behind what we're doing is we're looking at exports out of the US, UK, and Europe going into 5 importing countries: Chile, India, UAE, Pakistan, and Kenya. I hope I did that right. So there are 5 countries, and the reason that each one of these countries were chosen was because they have a very different profile, whether it's geographic or what the capabilities are in those areas. And with a goal of figuring out how the industry can have a just transition to the circular systems that we're talking about, right? And so to do that, we need to answer certain questions. Who's shipping goods and where are they shipping them to? So for instance, in the US, we ship what's called credentialed goods, or we ship salvage. We don't ship very much sorted goods. In the UK and Europe, they ship more sorted goods as well as potentially credentialed and salvage, right? What's in those materials? Where does it go? And what happens to it when it gets there, right? What happens from an environmental perspective? What happens from a social perspective? And somebody might say, well, I've read some reports on this already. We're working with over 70 different organizations and stakeholders. We've had conversations with about more than half of them, over 35 already, to talk to people about what studies have already been done, how we can build on those studies. And I have to tell you that everybody's been really like, oh, we're so glad that you're doing this. So it's not a matter of people saying, oh, but that's already been done. There's so much work that needs to be done for us to really be clear about what's going on, that we need to build off of this other information that's been done, right? There are parts of things that have been done we can take advantage of, and then we can also very clearly see where we need to develop more. So when those goods get there, WWF and BSR can look at the social side of things, right, to create that just transition. WWF is looking at WWF is looking at the environmental side, BSR is looking at the social side. Gathering this information and data is going to allow us to be able to provide information so that policymakers can be making appropriate policies. Where is the right place to sort goods? What is considered rewearable goods versus non-rewearable goods? Is that really for our policymakers to do? Who should be making that decision? And also too, what should the brands be doing to focus on their used textiles? And then technology providers, financing, what do they want to finance and where we need to be financing it in the export countries? Do we need to be financing things in the import country? So the material flows is essential to this work. I think Sarah mentioned that the systems was an outcome from things that we saw needed to happen, and this is as well. And so everything that Accelerating Circularity does is really designed for this idea that our work is focused on building the systems, setting the systems up, and trying to connect those gaps that exist with information, data, leading us to some kind of action so that we can transform the industry. So I'll pass it back to Sarah.
Thanks, Carla. And speaking of, work streams that have grown out of gaps that we identified, over the past several years of this work, we've really amassed a lot of knowledge and really practical, implementable outputs from all of this work. And one of the things that we, have sort of come to the realization is that we need to package all of that up and be able to deliver it to stakeholders in a way that is readily digestible and implementable for them. We've been so busy sort of doing the work and communicating it out, sort of quarterly or semi-annually in a report or a webinar, that we haven't had time to really go out and hold hands with people, as it were, and show them in their offices, in their workshops, or wherever the case may be. And so this education work stream is really meant to be the solution to that. We love hosting workshops. We love doing workshops. We get great feedback on them. And so this work stream is meant to sort of formalize that work to sort of transform the body of knowledge that we've built up over the last few years into discrete learning modules that can help really, siloed teams throughout organizations apply the circularity concepts that we've developed in their daily work. And it's really meant to equip teams throughout, let's say, a brand and retail organization with practical tools to identify and act on circular opportunities that they can take into their daily work. We're working on this now. Our phase 1 modules will be a sort of unifying textile to textile circularity 101 aimed at brands to be the, sort of let's get everyone throughout the org that touches textile to textile circularity sort of on the same baseline. And that will launch by year end. And then further developments will allow, sort of specific drill downs for various subsectors and others, policy, product, traceability, sourcing, raw materials, et cetera. But we really think that this is a necessary next step for our work. We've gotten lots of requests for training on the implementation of the work that we've done. And so we feel that it's time. We're really excited to bring this to the market. Now I'll turn it back to Carla to wrap us up.
Great, thanks. You know, the truth is that the idea behind the work we are doing is to create this transformation, right? The goal is to connect people, create the actions and the learnings so that we can all transform it. And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take everybody participating, but once they do, and that's why we're creating these learning modules, once they do, you know, we want to create it so that other people can do it, other people can go out and make this happen. We'd like to hear a little bit on your voice around what your thoughts are on what are the challenges. And so I think there's a survey that you can take. I think somebody can pop this up on the screen for us. There we go. I don't know. Am I supposed to do that or somebody else going to do it? Up, survey's already up. We just don't get to see it. All right. So there's a couple of questions here. It would be great to see what you say. In the meanwhile, it would be great. I think we've got some questions in the chat and the Q&A. If you have questions, you can either raise your hand or does somebody want to, somebody gonna show us what's in the Q&A? I think I can pop that up, a couple of the questions. All right, we've got one question from Mohammed Patel from UKFT. He wants to keep informed on legislation. I think there's so much going on in the EU. Petri, that's going to be your area where we're looking at specific legislative pieces.
Yes, indeed. I think the policy follow-up is crucial. We are doing this internally in a daily basis, mostly. Everything that is going on, we are scanning and understanding in order to be able to adapt our work towards the benefit of the brands by complying. And I think what I already said, that the EPRs, which are different in every European country, and harmonization is going to come, and it's really needed. It's something where we could help a lot to the brands and retailers in a way that they could benefit for these eco-modulation fees, which change normally between countries. However, they normally are highlighting the use of the post-consumer and not that much of the post-industrial waste.
Sure. And then Sarah, you're doing some work in the US. I mean, we have one EPR scheme that's already been approved, and you're involved in that.
Yes. So with SB 707 coming into effect in 2028, and those regulations being written now, it's, you know, an exciting process. We're staying closely involved in the process there. Really just in an education role, honestly. You know, we are experts in a specific portion of what the EPR scheme will involve, and that is the textile to textile piece of that. And so, you know, our role we really see as being that of educating policymakers and those key stakeholders in what textile to textile recycling is and is not, what the definitions are, what the capabilities are, who the important stakeholders are, who they can and should consult, et cetera. So really being sort of an expert, a subject matter expert, that they can consult on relevant matters for those issues.
Great, thanks. And then Carla from Reverse Resources is interested in the post-consumer programs that Patricia presented, and what solutions are you working on the programs to motivate the adoption of recycled materials, and which programs are you working specifically? I want to kind of weigh in on that because we're actually working globally. We have something that we call our lookbook, where we have products that were products, I want to be specific, textiles, fabrics that were made in our first trials. We're going to expand on that. We jokingly at Accelerating Circularity, we talk about the easy button. How do we make it easy for brands? And I think Sarah mentioned this when she was speaking about the idea that we really needed to be able to show the brands the materials. When we develop materials, we look at not only the performance of them, whether or not they meet RSLs. We have set for our group specifications. So we will be growing the number of materials that we have in the lookbook that are developed through our programs with the blends that Sarah talked about, things like 20% post-consumer, 20% post-industrial, and then other blends, and then look at whether or not there are people in the marketplace that also have materials that can meet those requirements. And I don't know, Patricia or Sarah, do you want to weigh in on that as well?
Yes, I will add to better explain what are the programs about. They are like, we oversee a real scaled production. So they are at the end the real practice of a circular system. We try to identify all the stakeholders in the two value chains, the textile recycling value chain and the textile supply chain, and we put them together. So we are very concerned about the origin of the feedstocks. We work together with the collectors and sorters, and we ensure the traceability throughout all the value chain and the final product. And we involve their collectors, sorters, preprocessors, then recyclers, and then we connect with the textile value chains with spinners, weavers and knitters, and fabric producers and the brands. In this way, we are kind of doing a rehearsal for what the brands are further doing by themselves, which is have this supply chain and normally produce the post-consumer. But as there are many complexities and challenges in the adoption of the post-consumer recycled materials, we accompany this process like for the first time. So it's easy for them to get to know all the connections needed, all the challenges that are presented. And we have like periodical meetings to explain what are the results, what is the interpretation of these results, and which are the difference and the comparisons between virgin and recycle, and they come to understand the complexities of the system, so that is easy.
Thanks. Yeah, oh, go ahead, Carla.
No, I was just going to pass it to you.
Oh, I was just going to add, a couple of differences between sort of the first set of programs that we ran and some of the iterations that we're doing in the current program to scale things up and motivate and enhance adoption. So, for example, to the point of performance and testing, we in the first round, we set a sort of midline performance testing benchmark. We collated performance testing standards from all of the participating brands and retailers, with the understanding that each would have their own, but that we needed something that was sort of unified in order to proceed and make progress. So we set kind of a midline, average from across all of the ones that we collected from the various brands. But we know that, of course, no brand is going to commercialize a product that doesn't meet its own performance testing standards. So in this sort of round of work, we've reevaluated that benchmark to the highest performance testing baseline, so that we know that if it's passing that, then it's going to pass anybody's, right? So that's one of the things to get around that issue that we hear all of the time around, recycled materials are not as durable, they're not as strong, the quality isn't there, et cetera, et cetera. So we know that we've got these materials passing the highest performance testing standards against virgin equivalent standards. So that is one of the barriers to adoption that we're overcoming. Another strategy that we're employing is that so in our first series of programs, we developed very basic yarns and fabrics that we knew many brands and retailers would use and could use in standard programs. So 20 singles, cotton yarns, basic jerseys. Now what we're able to do is take those yarns to multiple mills and say, are these yarns and potentially, jerseys, things that your customers might be interested in? And we're getting a lot of enthusiasm from mills saying, oh, I could take this and put this into 5, 6, 7, 8 different fabric programs that my customers buy on repeat. Or I could make this into a couple of different sample garments. I could keep some of this in stock for a small sample run, etc. So that's what we mean when we talk about making it easy for brands to adopt this, is by keeping things simple and making them easily adoptable.
That's great. I mean, it's just what we want to be doing. I'm going down the line here, but I think there are some questions that maybe are a little bit more specific. So Kelly was asking about circular opportunities, including circular design and CBMs. And are we speaking specifically? The programs that we work on today are really T to T. Now, certainly, obviously, circular design weighs in heavily on whether or not we're able to do T to T. So those are the kinds of things that we look at, and that's where sometimes our program expands, or we work with other people to expand those programs. And then Catalina Geraldo, what about the quality of textiles produced with blended fibers of used textiles, cotton, polyester, spandex? I understand that maintaining their quality is a major challenge worldwide. And so having materials that are blends certainly affect their recyclability at this stage. I mean, that's one of the reasons, spandex especially, right? Sarah, is one of the reasons that we have the systems group. While it's not usually in a huge portion of a fabric, although it could be, it has an outside effect on a product's ability to be recycled. So I don't know if there was some specific, I don't know, will you have anything specific to spandex in your some of the output that you'll have from systems group? You're on mute, I think. Sarah.
Sorry. The focus on the case studies has primarily been around detrimming, because the technologies that we're working with at this stage are rejecting spandex, or it's getting filtered as a byproduct. So it's not really addressing spandex at this stage, just because of the current state of the technology,
Right.
how it's
We
dealing
do,
with spandex.
we do have a couple of recyclers that can take chemical recyclers, right? We have chemical recyclers that are actually in the process of running trials specifically on elastane, and I think they were looking for up to 20% elastane. So, you know, this is where things get really complicated, especially when you start talking about, you know, standards for sorting fractions and those kinds of things, because they're so specific to different recycling technologies. And then I think maybe that sort of goes in line. Michael Abadi asked about how do we persuade producers about the importance of circularity? And I'm wondering, and it might be hard for Michael to answer this, but when he says producers, are we talking about fiber producers, fabric producers, garment producers, all of whom need to have to be persuaded about the importance of circularity? Eileen, I don't know, I see you shaking your head. Yes, do you want to weigh into that? Oh, and so Michael answered, he said fabric producers and processors. There we go.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to a willingness to be innovative, and some of that innovation is what helps to drive any of our businesses. We find that, you know, newness is what sparks interest from the consumer, and that follows all the way through back through the supply chain. And so I think with the fabric producers and any processors, they do need to feel that there's demand from their customer base. At the same time, there's opportunities for them to get involved and share. For instance, when we work with our lookbook, this is meant to inspire more creativity, innovation around what is possible today with recycled materials, and bringing those fibers into some finished fabrics.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you. I think that when we're looking at what the producers want, you know, I want to take one moment here to talk about the fact that, you know, when we're talking about transitioning to circularity, right, we have to remember why we're doing it, right? So what are the reasons? And certainly what Eileen said is really true. You know, the need for innovation. And we need those innovations because we have to recognize that right now the world incinerates and throws into municipal solid waste and makes new about the equivalent in new textiles fibers every year, right? And, you know, we don't harp on that because we think that pretty much everybody knows it. But that's a pretty good reason right then and there. And we know that this transformation to circularity, it's a non-negotiable for us at Accelerating Circularity, and that's why transformation is so important. There was a question in the chat about, I'm going to flip back and forth, but there was a question in the chat about the learning modules and what they're going to look like, and if they'll be adapted to specific needs of each partner in the value chain. So for instance, you know, the sorters need different support than, say, the yarn spinners or the textile company. How do we see this? Is it going to be online trainings, in-person trainings?
Yeah, so our initial vision is that it will be in person because we like things to be interactive and we like to have props. We like things to be, we work in a tactile, you know, sort of very physical industry. And so we think that being in person is important. However, the reality is that travel is expensive, and sometimes, you know, you just have to do things online. So we also want all of the education to be adaptable to an online format. As I mentioned, the initial set of interventions will be sort of an overview that will be primarily aimed at a brand and retail audience, but then after that, we will do deeper dives into other sectors and subsets of you know, each knowledge center or activity within those sectors. I hope that helps.
Somebody just said that online training is great for low carbon.
That's true.
It is true. We have to work with a lot of things. We're running close on time, and so I want to do one more question from Ki Phan, and I hope I pronounced that properly, from GIZ in Vietnam. And she's wanting to know what our position is on post-industrial textile waste and the transition to circular textiles. And, you know, it's really interesting because I think people speak to, you know, post-industrial, post-consumer. How do we see things like, you know, mechanical recycling versus chemical recycling? And as I just said, this is an enormous problem. And so we're going to need all the different types of recycling. They're going to need to work together. We're going to need all of the different feedstocks. I mean, we jokingly call post-industrial feedstocks baby food. It's easy for the recyclers to digest. It's not as complicated as the post-consumer, but it's not, I mean, it's a big volume, but it's not the same kind of volumes that we're seeing in the post-consumer markets, right? So I think that that's something that we have to recognize, that this transition, we want to use all of the tools and materials that are available as we move away from a linear supply chain and move into a circular supply chain. Certainly everything should be used. And with that, there are some other questions that we'd certainly like to answer, but as we're running out of time, we can answer some of those by email. We're always happy to engage with people. And so we look forward to keeping the conversation going. So as we close out now, what we'd like to do is talk a little bit about what's next for us. I think we talked a little bit about what's coming, the educational work stream that's coming, the work on the material flows. That's a 2-year project. It'll continue. But there is ways for you to be involved, certainly to join the post-consumer programs at every step. I think that that's something that's really important. And that's really the best way to learn. We find that people that participate, it's amazing the kinds of details that we learn. Sometimes it's hard to actually talk about them, all of them, in a 1-hour webinar or in some of the other areas. So certainly, I think there's a QR code where you're able to connect with us. I suspect everybody knows that you can find us at info@Accelerating Circularity. So yeah, those are great ways to stay involved. And by the way, we believe in circularity for everyone. And so if it's not a fit for you here, please use other tools and systems that are making this transition as well. Next slide. So one of the things that we'd like to do while we're here, we would like to thank very much the people who are participating. This is just a small sample of those organizations that are in the process of working with us on our post-consumer programs. And in addition to this, we are really grateful to the support that we get from some foundations, both in the US and in India, to make this work possible. This work can't happen without funding. Just like everybody else, we need to support this through our time, our actions. It requires financing. So together, through connection, action, and transformation, we can change the future of textiles. We need to think about this as a change that's essential. So we appreciate everybody's time today, your curiosity, which is, I think, what drives all of us to look into this more deeply, and your commitment. So we appreciate your time. Have a great day.